Thank you, Simon, and hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another City Talk. And I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of our land, and I'd like to acknowledge the partnership with the Sydney Morning Herald to put on these City Talks. I'd also like to acknowledge the Shadow Minister, Gladys Berejiklian, who is here tonight to hear the speakers, which is terrific, and I'd also like to say that the Transport Minister wanted to be here, but he couldn't be, but he did meet with Ken Livingstone last night, and he heard all about what one needs to do in cities in terms of transport. So, I would like to welcome the former Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone. He is going to talk about how major transport improvements transformed London, as we've just heard from Peter Fray, and Anthony Albanese, the Federal Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government. Ken Livingstone is also a key founder of the International C40 Large Cities Climate Leadership Group, of which Sydney is a member and of which I've spoken at these City Talks previously. It is an inspirational alliance of the world's largest cities committed to leadership and action on climate change. And as urban areas produce up to 80% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, it is cities that have a central role to play in tackling climate change. And in Sydney we can learn from London's experience. London's transport changes were pioneered with the support of business to tackle traffic gridlock, but they also became an important aspect of London's action on global warming. And the City of Sydney has set a target of achieving 70% reduction in emissions by 2030, based on our 2006 levels. And Sustainable Sydney 2030 identifies where the emission reductions must come from. The key areas are buildings, energy generation and distribution, and of course transport. Sydney had a rail network that historically served us well, but it urgently needs, as we all know, to be upgraded and extended. Our neglected transport system is now impacting on the national economy, and that is why it's so important to have a national minister here. It's affecting our status as a global city, and it's undermining our city's livability and sustainability. I think the way that the City of London worked with the Blair government to achieve major changes is of particular interest to us here in Sydney. And it is opportune that Minister Albanese is here with us tonight. He's responsible for Infrastructure Australia, for the new Major Cities unit and the development of a new national cities policy. For the first time in a generation, we have a federal government which understands the importance of cities policy and investing in urban renewal and city infrastructure. With the Lord Mayors of Australia's other capital cities, I met with Minister Albanese and the Prime Minister in Canberra last month. We discussed the importance of investing in Australia's cities, and we hope to establish Vancouver-style agreements where national, state and local governments work together on city-based projects of national significance. Sydney's productivity is a matter of national importance, and our transport system is a key to securing Australia's economic future. The City of Sydney's local government area may be small, but it generated GDP of $74 billion in 2007-2008. It's 1/12 of the national economy. It's 25% of the state's economy. If the city's LGA were a sovereign state, it would be the world's 50th largest economy. And most of our economic activity is in industries dominant in the global economy, including business and financial services and telecommunications. We're also home to 90,000 creative industry workers, or about 1/3 of all creative industry workers in Australia. Half of all international visitors, including 2/3 of the business visitors, come to Sydney. Good, efficient public transport is essential for the success of a modern city. Our Asian neighbours recognise this, with cities such as Singapore and Shanghai investing billions in public transport. Investment in the right sort of infrastructure will fast-track our transition to a low-carbon economy, with the development of new green industries and the creation of new green-collar jobs that are the way of the future. The latest thinking on sustainable urban renewal is moving beyond low-carbon or even carbon neutral to new climate-positive zones that contribute to reducing the waste, the water and the energy impact on the wider city. This means that major inner-city urban renewal sites like Barangaroo and Green Square need to be climate positive to be commercially successful. This means not just well-designed, energy-efficient buildings with local energy generation, but also excellent public transport. Our analysis shows that transport changes alone could reduce Sydney's total greenhouse gas emissions by at least 5% over the next 20 years. As the national unconditional target is currently 20%, this is a significant contribution. Every day we have more than 1 million people in our city's local government area, 175,000 residents, 850,000 workers and visitors. It's equivalent to 1/5 of the population of metropolitan Sydney. During the morning peak, only 15% of those visitors or workers travel in by car. The other 85% arrive by train, bus, ferry, walking or cycling. Even those who drive are pedestrians once they get here. And it's important that we get people here efficiently, and once they're here, that we move them around efficiently and easily. To help achieve this, we engaged, as many of you know who come to City Talk, we engaged Professor Jan Gill to assess Sydney's streets and suggest changes as part of our Sustainable Sydney 2030 work. He found that traffic light phasing, noisy traffic-clogged streets, physical barriers such as raised highways and rail lines will make it hard to get around and block access to our stunning waterfront areas, which is, of course, why Sydney is special. So to make the most of our climate and our harbour setting, he said we should encourage pedestrian and cycling activity. He urged us to allocate more quality space for pedestrians and cyclists and use current public road space for events, concerts, cafes on a full or part-time basis. He proposed a dedicated north-south public transport corridor linked by a series of public squares. This would involve the closure of George Street to cars, make it a central thoroughfare open to people to walk, to cycle and to travel on light rail. This kind of transformation has already been done in other cities. This is not new, this is not revolutionary, everyone else is doing it except poor old Sydney. Including, on Jan Gill's advice, after he'd advised Sydney, part of Broadway in New York and around the world in cities such as Shanghai, San Francisco, Boston and New York are demolishing old raised highways or converting them into pedestrian or cycleways. Traffic planning requires adopting a street hierarchy, traffic calming, parking and a service strategy. The street hierarchy should include designated pedestrian streets and laneways, as well as vehicle transit streets, boulevards, general streets and slow streets, which are shared zones. For pedestrians, we need footpath widening, we need 40 km/h traffic speed limits, shorter pedestrian waiting times, shared zones, pedestrian priority routes, directional signage, adjustments to curbs and crossing opportunities. And of course, to get all this to happen, we need the concurrence of the RTA. And we all know that's a challenge. Our Green Network is a program to provide a safe and attractive walking and cycling network, linking the city centre, villages, main streets, parks and open spaces, and major cultural and activity precincts. At present, only 1% of trips are by bike. Our target is 10%. In fact, I want it to be much higher than that, but 10% we're starting with. Cycling is not just for road warriors. In a growing number of cities, it's a practical and a desirable means of transport for adults and children alike. We're spending $76 million to create 200 kilometres of a city bike network over 4 years, including 55 kilometres of safe, separated cycleways. We're also working with the 14 surrounding councils to map out a 245-kilometre regional network and have sought national funding. We haven't got it yet, Minister Albanese, but we're very optimistic. And at the City, we're also delivering free cycling with confidence courses to help people make the change. For our own staff, we're providing a push bike fleet to supplement our hybrid cars. We're developing green travel plans and we're providing cycling facilities. Combined with road changes, traffic calming, promoting car share and pedestrian activity, as well as better public transport, we could see a significant shift from car usage and ownership. This is a necessary response. It's not a desirable response, it's a necessary response to both climate change and to peak oil impacts. Just moving to smaller, greener cars, which is a good thing to do, but it's not enough. We need to achieve a significant modal shift in travel patterns to transform Sydney into the successful green city of the future that we must become. We're taking every opportunity in Sydney to get progress, and we need state and federal government participation and support and funding. A connected network of public transport that includes bus interchange, light rail, heavy rail and metro is critical. The rail system is at capacity, the bus network in the CBD is efficient, it's noisy and it's slow. Preparation for the construction of the CBD metro stations could be an opportunity to fast-track some of the Sustainable Sydney 2030 projects, including the new Sydney Square in front of Town Hall. Long queues of buses could be removed from the CBD if George Street is included in plans to extend the current light rail route. At the City, we support the extended inner-city light rail network, comparable to other world cities, including a city centre to Green Square line to Australia's largest urban renewal area. Current bus services in this area can't transport existing residents and workers, let alone the 30,000 residents and 22,000 workers who will arrive there in the next couple of years. I believe this is an ideal opportunity for a practical, outcomes-based agreement between local, state and federal government based on the successful Vancouver model. The City is working with the state on a joint funding submission to the federal government for a new light rail route between Central and Green Square, enabling interchange with other transport routes. Public debate is currently sharply focused on Sydney's public transport, and the Sydney Morning Herald's independent inquiry will outline a comprehensive solution. And Ken Livingstone's visit is a timely reminder of what can be achieved if the political will exists. I expect his visit will also prompt debate about congestion charging, and of course it already has. The reality is that people need effective and affordable alternatives to reduce traffic congestion. The London solution involved better integration and coordination of public transport, including integrated ticketing to make public transport accessible and convenient. And they've been doing it since the mid-1800s. They've invested in an extensive high-capacity underground and above-ground rail network, supplemented by other surface transport, including buses. It's an important lesson for Sydney. Congestion charging without adequate public transport won't reduce traffic congestion or emissions. Rationalising existing road tolls, combined with significant investment in public transport, access to car share schemes, safer cycling and walking, could reduce Sydney's reliance on cars and produce the sort of benefits that London is experiencing. Reform is needed, and the first move for Sydney must be to establish a transport coordination body that is responsible for an integrated transport plan. There are too many government agencies involved, often with competing priorities and agendas. For every proposal the City currently negotiates separately with numerous departments and agencies. We negotiate with the RTA, the STA, the Ministry of Transport, the Taxi Council, Police, Railcorp, private light rail, bus operators, Bike New South Wales, Pedestrian Council, Infrastructure Australia, the Barangaroo Development Authority, the Department of Planning, the Redfern-Waterloo Authority and the Sydney Harbour Foreshore Authority, amongst others. So you understand why we're always at meetings. The Premier has committed to a state blueprint for public transport, which I hope will involve one responsible authority, an integrated plan, as well as integrated ticketing. And I hope the opposition is also preparing a proposal so that the people of New South Wales will have a real choice at the next state election in just 18 months. My view about transport, it needs to be about bipartisan action. And if future transport plans are to have any credibility and to rebuild public trust, there must be legislative guarantees with clear targets that are regularly reported on. There are numerous international models for this type of legislative framework that can secure commitment to a comprehensive long-term transport plan that does guarantee future funding. It would ensure future governments are held accountable for implementation and for transport planning, making it above party politics and not stalling with change of government. Again, this is an area where we can learn from London's experience, and I know that Ken is certainly going to talk about that. I just want to finish by talking about Copenhagen. The National Government is preparing for Copenhagen negotiations in December, so it's an important time to reinforce a compelling case for national investment in Sydney's transport. The C40 Large Cities Climate Change Group, the City of Copenhagen and ICLEAR, which is the International Organisation of Local Governments for Sustainability, are holding a Mayors' Summit in Copenhagen for 100 mayors from around the world in the days leading up to the National Leaders meeting, and I'm representing Sydney at that conference. The summit will highlight the central role that cities play in reducing global emissions and demonstrate how change can be achieved in the short time needed. This is urgent and we need action. As former US President Clinton said, mayors are in the practical business of showing how to reduce emissions and demonstrating its good economics too. The summit that the mayors are holding aims to achieve that hope, that national leaders won't fail to honour their Copenhagen commitments because they don't know how. At Sydney City, we have commissioned research that models the impact of city-based initiatives on Australia's national emissions targets by calculating the potential savings if the Sustainable Sydney 2030 measures were applied in each of Australia's capital cities. Preliminary results show a potential reduction of 50% in each city's emissions by 2030, which by itself could deliver a quarter of Australia's unconditional target by 2020. This is without taking into account what the federal government expects to achieve through the National Carbon Pollution Reduction Scheme. So there's a very strong argument for Australia to commit to more ambitious targets in Copenhagen. Australia shamefully is in the weakest position of any industrialised nation to compete in a clean energy world. And according to the G20 Low Carbon Competitiveness Report released this week, as Simon referred to. So we have an incredible amount of catching up to do. Sydney's inner city communities are progressive, they want action, so this is a great place to trial bold changes. We can start by harnessing the public mandate and contributing substantially to national emission reductions, making big gains. Governments will still need to tackle the entrenched resistance from industry groups, but we must do both at the same time. I believe that we can deliver on agreed national benefits if national, state and city governments work in partnership on strategic city-based projects, as they've done so successfully in Vancouver. Fixing Sydney's transport system is an important starting point and a national priority. Thank you.